Hey guys, this is Cameron from Audi C7 Owners with you, showing you a DIY video on how to remove your front bumper and then install an RS style grill from eBay by Stone Carbon 2009. He sent me a grill to check out, and so here's a video on how to install it. First thing you need to do though is disconnect your battery terminal, which you can see I'm doing right there. If you don't do this and you turn on the car in the middle of doing this install and you have any cameras or sensors unplugged, it can mess them up to where you're going to have to get it recalibrated at the dealership, which is really expensive. Next thing you see us doing is jacking up the car. You need to do this to get the wheels off so that you can access bolts behind the wheels, to get the fender liners off, to access the bumper bolts. Make sure you break your lug bolts before you lift the car off the ground, otherwise you have to set it back down and do it over again unless you have an impact gun. Have a good jack, have some good jack stands, make sure you get it up high enough that you can get underneath the vehicle and work easily, because you will have to get under there to remove the belly pan.
There we go. There you go. Here's it. That's good. This camera over here, you can? Nope, I'm not going to be there. Not again. I can't be. I just wanted to let you go over this. Yep. Give it a kick.
Okay, the next thing you have to do after you get the car jacked up and the wheels off is remove this trim piece off the top of your engine bay here. It's real simple. There's just two plugs that you can use a trim piece to pop up. There's a little pin in the middle, make sure you don't lose that. But you're going to pop those two up and then you just pry it out. There's two tabs on the left and right side you pull out, and then you just pull the entire trim piece out and set it off to the side. Now once you have the trim piece moved out of the way, there's going to be a couple bolts you have to get here. I think they're T25, but I can't remember exactly. It's either T25 or T15 throughout this entire DIY on all your Torx bits. But you got one on the left and right side of the grill that you need to remove to loosen the bumper from the actual frame of the vehicle. Moving on, we go underneath the car, and you just need to unscrew the T, I think once again they're T25 Torx bolts underneath the bottom. This is just going to unsecure the bumper from the fender liners and belly pan underneath the vehicle. Now here we are in the passenger side fender well. There are 4 Torx bolts that you're going to remove. There's that vertical one there that I'm doing now, and then the others that are actually on the fender you'll see me remove. And then you can pull back the fender lining. You can see here I did remove that one and tried to get in there, but realized I didn't have quite enough room. So pull that all the way back, get out of the way. If you have a friend to help you hold the cover back, it helps. And here I'm pointing out the bolts. There's 2 vertical bolts. That's the first one. Then there's another one right there where I'm putting my finger. You can't see it, but you can get a socket up there. And the last one is through this hole here that you'll see the camera aim at. And it's not straight back. It's kind of up and at an angle. And so you need an extension with a 10mm socket to get in there. This is us actually removing the bolts. So there's the first vertical one here. And then you'll see the next vertical one's just a couple inches forward, and you kind of feel around to find it, and you'll eventually get it. And then once that's out, you go through the hole there in the frame that's just above my hand, and you have to go up at about a 15-20 degree angle from level to get to the other bolt. So once you get all 3 bolts on each side of the bumper removed, you're going to be able to pull the bumper off. But before you do that, you need to get something to support the bumper up, because there's lots of connections to it and you don't want to just jerk it off and damage anything. So we used a cooler. In fact, we used 2 coolers, even though the video only shows 1, but we put 1 on each side because they were the perfect height to go underneath it and support it. And then once you get it supported, you can pop the bumper off the left and right side of the vehicle by pulling straight out from the car, and you'll see it just pop off with the teeth there. And then the video doesn't show us completely removing it, but we were able to back it out about a half a foot, maybe a little bit more, to access all the electrical controls. Now here we are disconnecting the electrical connections, and we're starting on the passenger side and working our way all the way to the driver's side. For the most part, they're pretty simple to do. The hardest one was night vision, and you just have to work at it. You'll see me get in there, and once you take a look at it and see exactly how it comes off, it's not that difficult. But these are all the connections. That one right there is for the front parking camera. The ones before it were for the automatic cruise control sensors.
You got it?
Well, I can't really see, but
So I'll just point to it here. Okay.
and yep.
Am I pressing on it?
Now on this sensor here, I didn't get the full video of me removing it, but it's the exact same as the one on the passenger side that you saw me remove with 2 screwdrivers. I did end up breaking a little bit of the clip here, but it's still secured just fine when I put it back on. And then lastly, you have to disconnect your headlight washer fluid if you have that option. And I just got a bucket, I put it underneath there, open it up. A little bit of liquid will come out, but there's vacuum in the system, and it'll eventually stop.
Not too much. Cool. It does have vacuum.
So once you're done with that, you've got your wiring harness that goes over your crash bar, and you need to remove it because you're going to have to paint your crash bar because you're putting this RS6 style grill on, which is much more open than the OEM one, and so that silver bar is going to stand out like crazy. So remove the wiring harness. They're just clipped to the metal there. They're pretty easy. That piece that I'm working on there now, you just have to pop through. There's a pin in there and push it out, and then you've got a nice clean open bar. Here I am cleaning it with some lacquer thinner just to make sure there's nothing crazy on there that's going to prevent paint from adhering to it. Make sure you tape off or get paper and tape it up. Here I'm just using excess bubble wrap that I had laying around to mask off anything that you don't want to get painted on accident. You definitely don't want to get paint on your headlights, paint on any of your electrical connections, anything like that. So make sure you do a good job and mask off the bar before you paint. So once you're done masking off, it's time to paint. I used a Rust-Oleum primer and paint combo, and one just regular flat black, not really matte, but not really high gloss either, just a nice black spray paint. I ended up doing about 3 coats total, and I waited approximately a half hour in between each coat, and I just got to do that while I was working on the grill and bumper, and every once in a while I would turn around and spray the crash bar again. Okay, so now your bumper's completely disconnected, and hopefully you got a good working surface that you can use. Next thing you do is you remove all the screws that are on the grill holding it to the bumper. You do that from the back side. I forget exactly how many there are, but it's pretty obvious when you look on the back there. Just run around, and if you got a screwdriver with a Torx bit, it makes this job a lot easier. After that, you want to disconnect the wiring harnesses from your automatic cruise control sensors. There's a close-up there. You just press it on the tab and you pull out. Be gentle with it and it should come right out. And now we're going to remove the washer fluid system for your night vision if you've got that equipped. There's just a little clip there. You pop that up and then you pull the blue piece straight back and it comes off. And then I ended up removing the entire tube off of the bumper. It just pops right out. And then you can remove your night vision camera so that you can swap that over to your new grill. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts. I think I tried to remove 3 and pull it off. Didn't work and realized there was one more bolt. This is a really expensive system, so go easy with this. Take your time. Make sure you're not forcing anything with a night vision because I think it's about $3,000 to replace if you break it. Okay, so now you have to pop the tabs on the grill from the bumper, and these are really tight. They're really hard to do. You can't just pry them apart and pull them off with your hands. So a good trick that I found on the forums was to use zip ties, and basically you get a small screwdriver in there, separate them, push a zip tie through to keep them from connecting again. And you do this all the way around on every single tab that you can, and it'll keep them from being able to lock back in place, and you'll be able to push it out. But what you're about to see here is I'm going to do this, and I kept the video in chronological order, and you'll see me start to pry it apart, and it'll get a little bit loose, but it won't come off. And I thought it was just really tough on there, and luckily I really didn't try to force it because I ended up forgetting 2 screws that are behind the actual emblem that I need to remove. You'll see that here in a little bit. Once I remove those screws, the grill just pops right out of the bumper. Here I am prying a little bit, and just to point a note, I used a screwdriver here, and I was just real easy. Just made sure I just separated it with a regular screwdriver, didn't bend anything, didn't damage anything. You can see those tabs popping out and getting on top of the actual bumper whenever you get them completely separated. Anytime I pried from the front to try and loosen the grill up, I would use an actual plastic interior trim tool. That way I didn't damage the paint on my bumper at all. And here you can see the point that I realized I left 2 screws in there and used a hand tool to remove these 2 screws. Just 2 more Torx bits that are in there that were easily overlooked because they're set pretty deep in the emblem. And you can see that once I get this second screw undone, the grill just literally almost falls right off. Okay, now it's time to remove the automatic cruise control sensors themselves, and there's 2 tabs on each side. One's a big one, one's a small one. You can use your thumb to push that top tab. There's a thing holding it in, you can push it up, and then on the bottom, it's hard to see, but there's another tab there, and if you have a small screwdriver like I do, it's a perfect size to put down into it and then gently pry the sensor out. Just be real easy with it. It takes a little bit of force, but they do come out. You can see I get my hand in there and it pops, and then I'm able to wiggle it out of there. And another note with the sensors, they come out in a casing, and in order to put them in the RS style grill, you will have to remove that casing from the sensors because the sensors plug directly into the new grill without any kind of casing on them. Next, we have to remove the OEM front parking camera holder. It's a 3-piece system. There's a back plate, which I'm removing right now, and that comes off and around the wire. And you can see it there attached to the camera. It just pushes off of it. My camera's broken here, and I ended up swapping cameras during this install as well. A rock just nailed the lens and shattered it. But then there's 3 screws on the back. You undo these, and the backside plate comes off. And then the front piece is not connected by a screw at all. It's just latched in there, and you can pull it off, which you'll see here in a moment. Okay, so here comes the tricky bit, and if you're not aware, the RS6 style grill from Stone Carbon comes with a camera holder on it that's underneath the emblem, but it does not work well at all. This is part of the price of getting these grills at a cheaper price, so I decided to Dremel mine out, which I got the idea looking on the forums as well, and so I Dremeled that piece out because the camera system that we just removed from our OEM grill is going to go here, and you have to actually Dremel quite a bit out to make room for that system. My advice is to just make small cuts and take away a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. Don't try and make any big drastic cuts that you're going to regret. Just work with it, go really slow, and be really careful. The OEM camera holder for your front parking camera from your original grill, the back plate will fit on here once you get it cut correctly, and you'll be able to screw it into the back of the emblem just like the other grill, but the front piece will not be able to mount on the front. So don't make your cuts too wide because, like I said, it won't mount very well. I don't know exactly how I'm going to get it to fit on there, how I'm going to retrofit it, but I've got to play around with it a little bit because right now I've just had it exposed, as you can see here. It doesn't look terrible. You can notice it on the grill unless you're really looking for it. But anyways, this is the last step of the install. You're just going to push the grill in, snap it into place, get it connected well. There's no trimming of any other tabs that you have to do. If you got an actual OEM RS6 grill and spend the money on it, you'll have to trim tabs on it, and you'll have to trim your bumper a little bit. But with this one, you don't have to do any of that. It just plugs right in, sits nice and flush. But remember, with the camera there, one thing we forgot to do, when you push it in, feed the cable through all the holes before you lock it in. We forgot to do that, and the cable got twisted up in there. We ended up having to pop it back off and then refeed the cable back in. After that, all you have to do is reassemble everything in reverse order that you took it apart in, and it's really simple. Put it back all together, plug everything up, turn your car on, and you're done.